Hello. Today we are going to be going over the newest combatant, which at the time of recording is set to release on global servers tomorrow, Sage. Now, there was some speculation that Sage might have been an alternative type of summoning, such as the Spotlight Dash with Selena, or perhaps in the Wishing Wheel event that the Japan server got for Chi Butterfly Dream. It appears that that has been completely debunked. As per the update notes on the official Twitter account today, it seems that Sage is going to be a regular limited banner, so you will be able to use your red orbs to summon her. So basically, what we're going to be going over today is a bit more of an in-depth on Sage. Basically, what her kit does, should you pull for her, what breakpoints are you looking at as, a free-to-play player, a light spender, a dolphin, etc., etc., etc. So, in a broader sense, should you pull Sage? Absolutely. Sage is an incredible character, very strong sustain for green Pathos. Can even be played for other Pathos colors potentially, but her ability to keep your team alive is very, very strong. You're going to see Sage have viability in both PvE and PvP, which we'll be discussing separately. Um, as far as Sage's kit goes, let's quickly go over that. So Sage's passive is Heartfelt Therapy. All of Sage's HP related stats are increased by 8%. This is a weird localization thing. This could just mean all of her defensive stats. This could just mean like her HP, her shield gained up, etc. We're not going to know until we have her and we are able to test her. This is a pre-release video, after all. If all deployed combatants are green Pathos, effect is further enhanced by 2%. And then it's going over what the diagnosis effect does. Basically, uh, her skill 1 puts her into this diagnosis status for reference. But what diagnosis does is it taunts and redirects 50% of the damage dealt to allies to Sage. And after a skill card is devoured, the only example right now in the game of a skill card being devoured is when Aphros uses her ultimate. It activates a 1-star tailored approach, which again is her skill 1. This is her ability that's going to activate the taunt. So basically, Sage gets a bit tankier from her passive. Obviously, this increases at 2, 4, and 6 stars. This increases a little bit more if you have an all-green team. And then her diagnosis buff gives you a taunt, redirects 50% of any damage taken by any of your allies. Um, and also, if a skill card is devoured, you activate your taunt for free without needing to use the card. Skill 1, Tailored Approach. So it's going to reduce her own damage taken by 30%, and it's going to enter Diagnosis for 3 turns. So essentially what this is it's a 3-turn taunt with a bunch of damage reduction. And then, if you are already under the effect of Diagnosis and you use this card again, you heal all allies for 20%, scales up to 28, 36% of this combatant's max HP. HP scaling healing, always nice to have, right? Her skill 2, House Call. This one's a bit more of a whatever. Deals typeless damage to a single enemy, 120 to 200. Typically, you're not building Sage for damage, so this isn't really going to do a lot. Under the effect of Diagnosis, it does slightly less typeless damage, but it does it as an AoE instead of single target. Sage's ultimate, Vital Shield, heals the combatant for 49, scales up to 56, 64, and then finally at 5 stars, 71% of her max HP. So it's a self-heal. It's good at keeping herself alive, but obviously the main star of Sage's kit is going to be your tailored approach. This is where a lot of her power budget is. So essentially, The strength of Sage in PvE, obviously, there's a lot of enemies that will attack, single target. Most notable example here is in the current Aphros event, where the Tentacle Boss will hit one enemy and drain their SP on hit. If you are running Sage in the event, Sage can tank every single tentacle hit, so that at that point you only have to worry about uh, the debuff where it makes it so you can't gain SP. The boss will no longer be able to take SP away from your damage dealers when you have Sage in play. And then also alongside that, she offers a lot of damage reduction in the scenario where you're getting hit by AoE, which would circumvent taunt. And then she also has access to healing, both for her entire team and her basic skill card, as well as her ultimate. This makes Sage not only a very effective sustain unit for your team, but also a very effective tank. The combination of the taunt, the damage reduction, and the healing makes your team extremely hard to kill. In my opinion, on paper, looking at this, she definitely seems like a stronger sustain option than Anya. Triss is tricky because I don't think they fulfill the same roles. Triss can dispel debuffs. Triss can buff attack with her passive. They don't really. The Sage is definitely better defensively, but Triss does have some offensive value and some other unique utility with the dispel. Um, so of course in this game, very important, star ups. So Sage already seems pretty solid at 0 stars. Well, what can you expect when you pull additional copies of her? So with her 1 star, after using her ultimate, it extends her diagnosis state, her taunt, by 1 turn, which allows it to exceed the maximum turn limit of 3. I mean, this one's okay, right? Ultimate extends taunt by 1. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like a lot of 1 stars that can like hugely QOL a character's kit. I wouldn't really recommend stopping at 1 star. It's just kind of like a little bonus that you get on the way. The first big one that you're going to see here, and this especially holds for PvP, is going to be her 4-star effect, which is at the start of battle, use a 2-star tailored approach. So a 2-star taunt. So reduce damage by 30%, and then I don't know why it's a 2-star card. There's no difference besides the heal, but you're not healing, you're taunting. But anyways, start of battle, taunt. And if you recall, this does sound very familiar. There was a character that terrorized Arena early on towards launch because she could taunt at the start of battle, and that was Poppy Duck and Roll. Now, Poppy Duck and Roll does have a lot of problems, right? Essentially, she's an SR, she's a base SR, she doesn't have a pathless weapon, so you are at a massive CP disadvantage, and she doesn't offer anything besides the taunt. Whereas with Sage, she is a fully fleshed out 5-star character, incentivizes building HP because of the heal. So her SP is going, her combat power is going to be innately quite high. It's definitely going to be on the higher end. And then additionally, even if you're, fighting all AoE, again, she has damage reduction with her diagnosis. It redirects damage. It reduces her own damage taken, right? So even against AoE, it's good. I would say 4-star is borderline mandatory for PvP. For PvE, I mean, it saves you a card, right? Which can make the difference if you're leaderboard chasing. As far as clearing content, like clearing the hardest difficulty of Nightmare's Call, it's not going to make that much of a difference, honestly. It's just a bit. It just helps out a little bit in terms of min maxing. When you have her at 4 stars for PvE, I would say it's a lot more mandatory for PvP. Then we have her 6-star. Additionally, for diagnosis, an additional effect that's added to diagnosis is that all allies take 20% reduced damage, just straight up 20% damage reduction for your entire team. This is broken in PvP. This is broken in PvE. If you have the means to get 6-star Sage, I would definitely recommend it. This is definitely one of the more powerful 6-star effects. Not the most. I wouldn't say Sage is like the top priority to 6-star. If you are like a moderate spender, dolphin, whale territory, but she's high priority to 6-star. So generally, what would I recommend in regards to pulling her? Well, I would say that generally you should definitely look to get at least a copy of her. She is an invaluable sustain for your account. She's very strong. With her, you are really just going to have a hard time dying. Um, for PvE specifically, you don't really need to go past the initial copy. I mean, obviously, you will survive a bit better at, especially 6 stars. Maybe 4-star can help a little bit, but generally, she's not super duper reliant in PvE. For PvP, I would definitely recommend getting her to 4 stars if it is feasible to, because this is going to make a massive difference. And then from 4 stars, if you are able to take it even further and 6-star her, I would highly recommend that as well. If you are one of those players that only pulls for PvP, we have had a long. Well, no, that's wrong, because Aphros and Eleanor are both quite good in PvP as well. So maybe your funds are dry. Um, but yeah, Sage is definitely quite valuable in PvP starting at 4 stars. I would definitely, if you are a moderate spender, if you have a stash, if you care about PvP, I would definitely advise looking for that 4-star breakpoint, and then if possible, 6-star breakpoint, right? But the 4-star is the important one to get to. And then I guess I could take a little bit to go over team building as well, right? What types of teams are you going to be looking to build with Sage? Um, so I'm just going to put the duck and roll here as a Sage because I think it's funny. So basically for PvP, if you are team building with a Sage, now there are multiple different investment levels in PvP here, but I'm going to assume like a moderate spender to whale level of investment here. We'll kind of discuss specifics, but generally um, there has been a resurgence of people playing, Aphros, Eleanor piles in PvP. The comp that Karipo is playing right now is pretty much Scarlet, Eleanor, Aphros, Arena, right? Um, Very good team, lots of damage, lots of burst potential. Now there is a flaw in this team, which is the fact that it is possible to counterplay Aphros. There is another comp that you can play in PvP right now, pre-Sage, which can beat this with a CP advantage, assuming that your characters are invested enough. And this team is just Minami plus 3 stat patters. Basically, how this matchup would work out is if you have CP advantage, which you should because you have 3 CP pad units, whereas they only have 1. Actually, you can do 2. You can build pad on Eleanor. It's not going to be quite as high, but you can pad your CP through Eleanor because she doesn't actually need to deal damage in PvP, right? But essentially, how this will work is turn 1, you're going to use Minami's Vuln card on Aphros. If Aphros gets hit by a single target ability, she doesn't gain awareness. She is unable to counter. So then their Eleanor counters, their Scarlet activates their card. Worst case scenario, your Arena procs. If your Minami is properly invested, the Aphros should proc Arena shield upon getting Vulned, and then on after they do their Scarlet card, even if they proc Arena, and then you go and you Minami AoE, and then they die, right? That's pretty much how it goes. This team is hypothetically, right? I mean, there's not really anybody who's investing in PvP CP wise as much as Creepo is. But if you were to take like a second Creepo account and they were to play this team against the Aphros Eleanor team, um, this team would win because it would have higher CP, and then you would just disable the Aphros effectively. But I say all this to say that there is a possibility where you take this Aphros Eleanor core, right? And you run the Arena, and you run the Sage. And basically what this does, you have 3 CP pad units, right? You have 3 CP pad units, and Aphros cannot be targeted by a single target ability because of Sage, right? Can't be targeted. So Aphros counter will always resolve. The only flaw with this team is you lack a really good turn 1 play. You are essentially limited to like AoE attack debuffing with Arena. So I mean, if you go first, you can debuff with Arena, and then they would. I mean, there's a number of things that could happen there. Well, I mean, if they counter, then you counter, right? If they counter, well, then I guess you wouldn't kill them. But I mean, there's still a lot to cook here, basically. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is Sage would assist Aphros with not being able to be outed by a single target ability from Manami. As far as how good Sage will actually be in PvP at that level, we'll see. I do think in PvP scenarios where, outside of whale territory where people don't have 6-star Arena, so Arena isn't played, I do think that you can see teams pop up like this: Scarlet, Aphros, Eleanor, Sage, or, depending on preference, right, Manami, Aphros, Eleanor, Sage. I would probably say Manami's better, especially if, you're not playing around 6-star Arena. Like, Scarlet's better specifically into Arena if your Scarlet's invested enough to force the Arena's force the Arena's immortality on her first AoE. Not everybody's going to be there investment-wise, though, so that's a bit subjective. But I do think that this team, Aphros, Eleanor, Manami, Sage, will definitely be good at that light to moderate spender level where you are able to get things like 4-star Aphros, Eleanor, maybe you have a 4-star Manami, maybe you have a 4-star Sage, maybe you didn't have the means to get a 6-star Arena because she was a Luminox banner, and that was a pretty expensive endeavor to be able to max out that character. And Arena isn't really worth playing in PvP if you don't have her at 6 stars, right? I think at Dolphin levels, Sage can definitely be great. At Whale levels, I have my doubts. I'm going to enjoy having Sage on my account regardless. Outside of PvP, PvE, it's just going to be quite simple. Sage just fills in your sustain slot. I would say the best team that she's going to have synergy with is the. Actually, it's the same team. You play the same team in PvE. Now you can swap out Manami for. Well, you can swap out Manami for Shiro, but then you're playing Zero Trinity Shiro. Might still be better than Manami in 1 to 3 target, honestly. It's definitely better in 1 target. Might still be better in 3. Sage has the best synergy with Aphros and Eleanor because they're all about Devour anyways. Aphros devours a card with her ultimate. Eleanor devours a card, or Eleanor has a card that wants to be devoured by Aphros. And then Sage, when the Devour happens, gets to use her taunt ability, which will either, get your taunt back up and running if it's down, or it'll heal your team for free, which is broken, by the way, in PvE. It's absolutely insane. Um, but yeah, I think Sage is going to be fantastic in both PvE and PvP. I don't think she's going to be absolutely meta shattering in PvP as people initially thought. I think she's going to be very good. It's kind of where I land on Aphros Eleanor right now. I think they're good in PvP. I don't think they're broken. Um, so yeah, I would say that's my general thoughts on Sage. Uh, if you guys like this content, please let me know. I can always try to do more content just about should you pull guides, event guides, etc., etc. I love yapping about the game, so if you guys like what you are seeing today, please feel free to let me know, and I will see you next time.